I'm more concerned about my mother still being alive. There are just things that I've denied my whole life. I'd rather not.
Speaking of which, welcome back to the Maria Sanchez Show.
Sorry, Mom.
We're talking about our lives and the fact that, you know, everybody has a book in them, and Scott's actually taken that opportunity. He's going to be writing one. Scott Harris, our in-studio guest. But there was a man who was a serial killer in the Midwest, and he finally confessed.
On your segue to a serial killer?
After his mother passed away, is what I'm trying to say. Is because Scott was like, I don't know, I think I'll wait till my mom passes away. This serial killer did not. He maintained his innocence while in prison, and his mother was his staunchest supporter. When she passed away, he finally admitted that he had been guilty.
Okay, Mom, just so we're clear, it's nothing like that. It's just a couple of high school grades. It's not a big deal.
It's the hijinks. The hijinks of youth.
My mother watches this show.
So we'll start an introduction now. We have Scott Harris in studio, and Scott is the owner of Mustang Marketing, which is in the Conejo Valley in Ventura County. And Scott visits with us once a week and talks about marketing. And today we're on Marketing 106. Scott.
Well, thank you. Actually, today what I want to talk about, and it's kind of, I think, a neat thing for the end of the year, and it's a little surprising with the start, but it's based on a Reader's Digest article. And what I want to talk about is marketing yourself a little bit. You know, we talk about marketing companies and products and services, but I was reading an article in Reader's Digest about a man who happened to be my age. He was 53, and he was going through a terrible time in his life. He was bankrupt and divorced and struggling and all kinds of things, and he decided that he wanted to turn his life around. And one of the things that he did, and it just struck me in reading the article, was every single day he wrote a thank you note to somebody and dropped it in the mail. Not an email, not a phone call, not a Facebook note, an actual physical piece of paper with ink on it, wrote it, addressed the envelope, and mailed it out to people. And he was shocked at the impact it had on his life and on others' lives. And I really liked the idea. I mean, I thought it was a neat idea. And so, fortunately, I'm not going bankrupt, and assuming Randy's, not watching the show, I should be okay. But I thought it was a neat idea nonetheless. And so about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started doing that. And it has been amazing, the response that has come back. I am getting phone calls from people, some people that we know together. I'm getting notes back from people. People seem really touched by it. You can put the same thing on Facebook or in an email or even in a phone call, and it doesn't seem to make quite the difference as opening an old-style envelope and pulling out a note. And I am now looking for reasons to do it. I am really enjoying the process. And I got to thinking in advance of the segment today about how valuable it is for each of us to market ourselves and how important that is. You and your show, for example. So much of this show is based on your personal connections, the relationships you've built up over years with the radio show and the Red Cross and everything you've done. And all of that is added up now to where most people in the county will take your phone call and are happy to come on the show, which would be harder to do if somebody was brand new, right, if they didn't have those relationships. And part of that is you've marketed yourself. You've carried yourself in a certain way in the community. You've earned a level of respect. And so when you call people, they have a pretty good understanding what the show is going to be. It's not a gotcha show.
Right.
They understand that they're going to be treated with respect, even if there's a difference of opinions. And you kind of look around at the different ways that we can market ourselves through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through writing these daily cards, through making some phone calls, through the simple act of saying, thank you on a regular basis. And I went back and I've taken a look in our little business at the new clients that we landed. At the end of the year, you do an assessment, and I realized that almost every single client we landed in the year 2010 was a referral, which I think is a testament to our staff and the work that they do. And I just thought it might be a good time to remind people, as we're talking about marketing every week, not to forget to market yourself. Whether you own your own company, whether you work for somebody else, whether you're just getting started, or you've been around the block a couple of times. Let people know what you're doing. Let people that have helped you know that you appreciate it. And I tend to think you're kind of planting some seeds that you'll be able to harvest a month, 6 months, 5 years down the road.
I like to call it the attitude of gratitude.
Okay.
And
there's a neat phrase. It's a bumper sticker.
And it really is that we have so much to be grateful, and unfortunately we don't focus on that a lot. We focus on what we don't have instead of what we do have.
I think a lot of times it's easy to get caught up in that, to forget that most of us who live in Ventura County are pretty darn lucky.
Yes.
I mean, it's a great place to live. We got some struggles as a state, and that's fine. We'll figure those out. But overall, it's a pretty good place to live. And I think you're right. Sometimes it is kind of easier to remember the battles and the frustrations and the challenges that we're facing and not look back and take a look at your life or your year as a net and say, wait a second, I've had pretty good health, the family's doing well, the business did okay. Maybe there are some things to be really particularly happy about. And then look back and say, and who played a role in that? And drop them a note and thank them and say hello. And, we spent a little bit of this year, Bob Brooks, for example, we're saying goodbye to some friends that have been around for a long time. And
Chief John Cromback.
Exactly. Well, we don't get to say goodbye to him. We just get to watch him move about.
Well, in a capacity.
He retired for an hour and a half and then moved a block. So I don't think John fully understood the retirement concept, but a lot of people don't seem to. And so, I look at that and I just kind of wanted to share that with people. Just as a little, it seems so obvious. As I say it, there's a part of my head saying, wait, that's kind of the most obvious thing in the world.
Not at all.
But on the other hand, it's easy to lose track of that. And it really hit me in reading this article. I was reading about this guy. And I mean, number one, I admired him for fighting. He kind of reached a low point and then said, you know what, that's it. Done with the self-pity, done with this and that. I'm going to turn it around. And that was one of the things he did. And he wanted to remind himself every single day that he had something to be thankful for. So he was sending notes to his kids, notes to his business partners, notes to whoever it might be. And I just thought, well, that's kind of a neat deal. And then that just kind of led to the natural progression, which is, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that we're marketing ourselves, right? I mean, you're marketing a TV show and a new station and a new way of looking at things and doing things. But in the end, you're really marketing Maria. That's what you're playing. That's why the show is called the Maria Sanchez Show. I think it should be the Maria Sanchez Scott Harris Show, but I guess for one half hour, one day a week, I don't get co-billing. Maybe just on Wednesday we could come up with a new logo. That'd be kind of fun. But there's a reason that your name is on the show. You're pretty well known. You've done a good job of marketing yourself, and I'm not saying that you haven't thanked people or haven't done a good job with some of those things. But I don't think any of us could be hurt by being reminded of that. And for those who are already doing it, fair enough, I get it, I understand. And for those who are going, that's the most obvious thing in the world, but I forgot about it, that was me 3 weeks ago.
I also think it goes along with the philosophy about paying it forward. Because what you said is true. I've been in the Conejo Valley for 19 years, and it was never, and in the county, obviously, and it wasn't about what am I going to get out of it. It's about my motivation was always, what can I do to help? Mm-hmm. How can I contribute? How can I make the school? How can I make the team? How can I make this event better? And then over time, you're right. Now it's like I'm saying to people, would you mind coming in? And the line that everybody says is, when Maria calls, you don't say no. And it's like, because I've never called before.
Yeah.
I haven't been leaning on people.
Well, and the calls are reasonable. I mean, your requests are reasonable, so it's not a call that you dodge. And there are some.
Tell her I'm busy.
That's right, and there are some, and we both know there are calls. Are you kidding? Don't we have a permanent block on that number? And then as I got to thinking about it, I started to realize that there's probably 2 or 3 days a week where I get a card in the mail from somebody saying thank you for something. And so I started to take a look at it, started to analyze a little bit, and I realized almost all of those were from nonprofits. Different nonprofits that we do some work for, that we pitch in for, write a small check, and they're not sending me an email, they're somebody's taking the time to write out a note that says, thanks for the sponsorship or thanks for whatever it is. And I was telling Randy Randy, my wife, I was telling her as we were having this discussion that every time we get one of those, we're touched. Mm-hmm. I mean, we think about it. It's not that when someone sends a thank you by email that it's disregarded or doesn't count,
right.
But it doesn't have quite the same impact
as
a simple little note that's hand scrawled. And mine are challenging because my handwriting you really can't read it. I think people are just calling to say thank you, but they have no idea what I've written.
Thanks for your
I could write anything I want on there. It could be the most horrific thing in the world, and I'd get a thanks for the card because no one can read it.
And why aren't you a doctor?
Oh my God! As a matter of fact, my handwriting is so bad. I had an assistant that worked for me for about 15 years, and my handwriting is so bad that she was the only one who could read it. I couldn't read it, and I would come back from meetings with my notes from the meetings, and I would have to go into Erin and say, can you tell me what I meant when I wrote this? And it's very embarrassing to have to do that. And now she's gone, so I'm really in a quandary.
Hieroglyphics.
Yeah, it's a very sad situation.
Well, I like your message. It's one of gratitude, and this is the season of giving. And so thank you so much for bringing it in a practical way, because when we think of marketing, at least I do, I think of money and a firm and business, and you're talking about really marketing yourself in terms of connecting.
Just for today.
Yeah.
Good conversation to have just for today.
Thank you, Scott. Scott Harris, our political correspondent and our marketing expert, and you're watching the Maria Sanchez Show. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.